Today our guest is Tobi the Great. Yes, that is actually his channel name, and I've linked the channel below. It's an awesome follow. His content is all about engineering, but there's also some stuff about basketball, and it's all really witty and fun, so I very much recommend it. Tobi and I are going to talk about internships today, and he's had awesome experience at very different companies that I think could be very valuable to you. So, Tobi, you've interned at three basically like diametrically opposed companies. Like one was a startup, one was kind of like a banking type finance company, right?
Yeah.
And the other one was like a tech company, like a brand name. Why did you decide to do three such different experiences starting out?
Yeah. Thank you for the introduction. And I want to start off by saying I was incredibly lucky for sure. Like internships and interviews are always such a toss up, and it really does come down as much as you could prepare, like just applying at the right time. And a lot of things came in my favor. So I'm really happy that I've been able to get that much experience. And to answer your question, the reason why I guess I kept moving was because at my first role at the startup that I first worked at, I wasn't even in the tech position. I was working in the music department, basically doing Excel work, just collecting information off of Bandcamp sites and pasting them into Excel roles 8 hours a day. And I knew I wanted to be a software engineer, and that company did have a tech department with engineers. And on my lunch breaks, I would always sit by their tables and ask them what they're doing, what tools they're using, learn about GitHub, learn about the different kinds of libraries that they use with JavaScript. And I knew I wanted to do it. I just didn't have a way in. And then I had the idea in the middle of their internship to sort of try to create a Python script that would parse and scrape websites to do the work for me that I was already doing with copy and pasting that information. And luckily, it took a lot of time to get it to work, almost half the summer, but I got it to work and I was able to put it on my resume. And lucky enough, it was able to land me to my next internship where I was working at that investment bank firm, which again, wasn't a tech company, but it was the first time I ever had tech or software, anything in my title. And it was great because I got to learn about React. I got to learn how software development processes work. And I got to code and I got paid while I was coding. And that was just amazing. And then that summer went well. I made a few projects and I definitely progressed as an engineer. And I had the opportunity to intern or to interview at a few brand name companies. And again, like questions, like interview questions and interview processes are always going to be super difficult. And it really depends on how much you prepare and also if you get the right kind of questions. And I think I did on that day or those two interviews that I did. And I got to interview at like a tech company for the first time ever my junior year. And that's kind of how my journey's gone.
That's awesome. What was the difference between working at like a very small startup versus working at like much bigger companies later in your path? What are the things that you think were super valuable about the startup that didn't exist anywhere else?
Yeah, at the startup, there were it was a pretty like laid back, relaxed environment that I didn't know at the time, but it's pretty reflective of like, I guess, SF startup culture. Even though the company was based in New York, we had a brew on tap, we had cereal, like all kinds of snacks in the fridge and in the kitchen. Everybody was pretty laid back. It was kind of like an open seating, what's it called? Cubicle. See, I haven't even been at a cubicle in a while, but basically you could sit wherever. Dogs were allowed. Like it was a very like cool, like chill environment. But at the same time though, like on the negative side, there were restructures that could happen like any day. My manager's manager was let go in the middle of the summer. And I remember speaking with her that she had like a whole bunch of projects that she had to do 2 days before. So she had no idea she was being let go. So that was kind of like, I guess, the first kind of like reality check of like the good sides and the bad sides of a startup, that like things are always kind of like shaky. You don't really know like how things are going to go. So I guess those were the biggest differences that I see.
Oh, that's kind of quite a bit of difference, actually.
Yeah.
Would you say that you learn more working at a startup? Like a lot of people say that startup environments are kind of accelerators, but was that your experience?
Um, so at that first startup where I wasn't a tech intern, I actually did work at 4 internships. I know you mentioned 3 earlier, but I
Oh,
took
there's one more. Okay, wait.
yeah, yeah.
Fourth one. I don't know it.
I actually did intern at a startup after my 3rd internship, my junior year. I worked in New York again as well as a full stack engineer. And that time there, I can definitely contrast it to working at a typical big company because I had a variety of responsibilities and different projects I could work on. At the big company, I was assigned into one sub team that was part of a larger team that was also part of a larger team within the engineering division. So we were working in this one small area in some infrastructure related role. And the scope of my changes were pretty small compared to like the wider reach of the entire company. But at the startup, I got to work on the website. I got to work on the mobile apps. I got to work on some APIs, some infrastructure related things. Basically, I had a much larger scope of changes that I was allowed to make. And I definitely felt that kind of freedom and that kind of responsibility put upon me definitely helped me grow more as an engineer because I got to wear a variety of hats that I don't think most big companies would allow you to do like in such a short time frame.
What about tech versus like non-tech, investment banking versus pretty much everything else?
Yeah, for sure. I did kind of feel like at times that because the engineers there at a banking or a non-tech firm aren't the like true income generators, that there is some sort of, I mean, I guess that's kind of like summarizing it like a little too I don't even know how
They're
to put
getting
it
real,
exactly.
which is okay.
Yeah, it's just like at the end of the day, like if you're working at an investment banking firm, like the salespeople and everyone else on the finance side are the ones that are truly generating revenue. And the tech side is seen as a more supportive side, like a side that's kind of seen as maybe more expendable or just like not as close to the main product. And that sentiment is definitely felt like in terms of like the sort of processes we do and in terms of like the things that sort of affect the bottom line. And in contrast, like at a tech company, like engineers, there are the ones that are truly making the product. And you're really close to the decision makers and you get to sort of see how the product and revenue is earned. So
Sure.
that kind of like mindset, I think, is the biggest difference. Just that kind of knowing that that's the case.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like there were any like dogs at the office or like anything on tap over there.
No, not at all. No.
Would you say that in terms of like scope and like working on stuff, there was any comparison, or was that really different too?
You're asking me to compare between the
Investment banking and just tech.
Yeah, the scope was definitely a lot smaller in terms of like within my team. We were working like in one core part of the business, and at the time, like my project was basically to create a responsive website using React that was able to be displayed on a phone, iPad, or computer, and that was pretty much it. Like there was no like really not much leeway to like, oh, I want to work on this side or I want to work in different areas. Although like I'm sure that opportunity is available for like people that work there. I don't think in terms of the time period, it probably would have taken like much longer and a whole lot more overhead and like sign-offs that would need to happen to work on different areas. But in startups, it's really just like pinging somebody like, oh, hey, like I noticed that you're working on this thing. Can I learn more about it?
A lot of people are considering, especially with how the economy's changed like this year, a lot of people are considering not looking for an internship next year and instead just like working on a personal project over the summer. What would your advice be around that?
That's interesting. I think, I don't think you should ever keep like your options closed. I think there's a way to do both. Like I would see sometimes whether it's on Reddit or someone telling me like, oh, I don't have time for an internship. I'd rather kind of like focus on getting my resume together, working on projects. And like, you can definitely do both. You can apply to jobs, you can work on a bunch of different like applying to jobs isn't like, it gets easier, I think, every year. Like there's a whole bunch of automated like applicant systems that can really, and cover letters are becoming less and less, like, I guess, normalized to use. So you can really just apply to, like, back when I was applying for internships and full-time jobs, I was applying to like maybe like 50 a week. And that wasn't even, I think, that much work, honestly. It takes
That's
about
a
like
lot.
an hour. I mean, like, all it like takes is like preparing the resume, and then you do have to like enter your like your name and a bunch of like repetitive information over and over again. But I think you can definitely find ways to work on multiple things, especially if you're unemployed. I do want to say, like, it could be hard, like if you're working like a normal 9 to 5 during the week. It could be hard to work on personal projects and, again, apply to jobs. But I would say if you have the free time, definitely use as much of it as you can to not close any kind of doors in terms of what you're trying to do next.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, you guys, in our next video, we're going to talk about how to deal with personal projects, what personal projects are exciting and fun, how to pick one to really sink your teeth into. Go ahead and follow Tobi the Great channel. I butchered your name. And follow Candor as well. And we'll see you in the next video.